Welcome to episode 40 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers for winning, and even a bigger congratulations to the Miami Dolphins. I'm doing good. How are you doing, Jeremy? Miami
A
fan.
post-mortem is in order, but we'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
So we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. This week we've got games to talk about, postmortems to administer, overreactions to make, commentators to make fun of, and of course, wild predictions. So we've got a lot to talk about, most of it bad. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So typically we start in our our game of the week segment, we start with the actual game of the week, but we're going to do it in reverse this week because we wanted to make sure we spend plenty of time just roasting the 49ers. So we'll start off with the highlight game that Joseph and I chose for this week, which was not what you'd expect necessarily, going into it at least, and that is Giants at Cowboys. The Cowboys eke out a 37-34 win against their division opponent, the New York Giants. And the real story of this game was, of course, the gruesome ankle injury that Dak Prescott had. And before we dive into the specifics of the game, Joseph, I feel like the Cowboys have been strangely silent on this. Do you know what I know he had surgery that night, but do you know what the timeline for recovery is for an injury like that? Do they even know at this point?
I don't know if they know or not,
Okay.
but
They were
man, was
saying
it
that they were
gruesome.
saying that the bone like punctured the skin, so there's like extra precautions they're taking for infection and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know if that has any bearing on how quickly he'll recover.
Thought I
Um
had dinner an hour and a half ago.
Well, then don't watch. If you just had dinner an hour and a half ago or less, don't watch a replay of the Giants Cowboys game. We won't go into too many of the physical specifics, but I just was curious if you had heard any news on the recovery timetable, which I'm assuming he's out for the season with something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at least to the playoffs, I can imagine. So,
Yeah,
which ironically they'll probably make it, but on a losing record.
right. Which, yeah, it'll get him there in the NFC East. um, so what do you want to talk about in this one, Joseph? There were a few kind of interesting sequences that happened. I guess I can start with one of them. So
Yeah, go ahead.
in I don't remember. I think this was near. It was either near the end of the first half or the beginning of the second half.
What?
The fake field goal attempt.
Uh, that was put it down. End of the first half.
Okay. So the Giants fake a field goal. Um, Really good play call. Like the receiver was totally wide open. They
Well,
caught
and
Dallas
it was
completely
the
asleep
offensive tackle. It was the rookie offensive tackle they drafted.
for the fake field goal.
Yeah, they made a tack. They made a. I think his name was Andrew Thomas.
I think
Uh,
that was I think that was a different play because he was on the left. I remember Thomas was on the left side of the field. The receiver that caught the fake field goal was on the right side of the
oh,
field.
and I didn't realize they had two plays. I'll look that up while you keep going. Sorry, keep
Okay,
going.
so it would have been a touchdown pass, but then there was a penalty on the Giants for an illegal shift, which was I thought was like where the guy like basically sets, but he like one of his arm hairs moves a little bit, and so the referees calls it a illegal shift. So the touchdown got erased, and then the Giants ended up kicking a go ahead field goal to go up 2017. And then there was one other play. I just generally speaking, I gotta say, uh, CeeDee Lamb so far is blossoming into a great receiver. I
Mm.
really like what I see from him. I haven't watched every Cowboys game, but I know he is, and I know this word is overused in the league, but he is a physical wide receiver. Which I'll say this. To me, that means that they're willing to, uh, they have the mental fortitude and also the physical fortitude to put their body on the line. Basically, that's how I've always interpreted that. Commentators probably have different meanings for it, but is that? Do you think that's a fair interpretation of that word?
Yeah, that or is able to like in the midst of getting hit or going up for a ball is able to pull down a ball or survive a hit.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's good too.
By the way, you're right. Andrew Thomas, that was on a 2-point conversion he got, and the other one was a wide
That's
receiver.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a play where CD caught a ball in the middle of the field and just got popped. Like you could hear it on the audio feed, and the Cowboys did get a half the distance to the goal penalty, but um, the defender actually was not ejected on that play. Which I've made this comment before. This is my hit on a defenseless receiver watch of the week.
Yeah.
That player was not ejected. So I'm curious as to the rationale in that because it seemed consistent with other plays I've seen in previous weeks where the defender got ejected. But anyway, Dallas won the game, so it does not like the game turned on that play. Anyway, so what did you see in this game? What stuck out to you, Joseph?
How the Giants they just Daniel Jones. I think who he reminds me of, but maybe last year's Josh Allen. Josh Allen made a big leap from year 1 to 2, and now making a huge leap from 2 to 3. I think Jones might be making a leap from 1 to 2, but it's not as large. But he has skills. You'll see him, roll on the run and make these throws, and he has an arm, and he'll make these plays. But then he'll make a bonehead play. He won't get rid of the ball. He'll take a sack. Like, what are you doing? And I mean, obviously that happens when you're a young quarterback and you're growing into your position. But it's just crazy to think, how many quarterbacks have we seen who have that talent and potential, but just due to the circumstances of their offensive line, their team, et cetera, injuries, that they don't get to, be the quarterback that could have been if they were on a different team. So there's a weird, unique balance of your surroundings versus your own talent. And so Daniel Jones is showing that, but he's also inconsistent. So I was curious as to who's going to surround him and if he's going to end up being someone that's not very good, or he's going to be kind of like what Josh Allen is now, next couple of years. Other than that, the other comments I want to add is how important it is to have a good backup quarterback. How many quarterbacks, how many teams in the league don't have a backup quarterback that they can really rely on? They have him during a blowout, they're winning or losing, and you put him in there. You have him because maybe the quarterback sprained his arm for a day and whatever. But as we're going to talk about with Jimmy Garoppolo and obviously Dak Prescott, having a good backup quarterback and Andy Dalton. I mean, Andy Dalton is good enough to start on several other teams. He's not a great quarterback, but he is good enough to start on other teams, and he's probably the best backup in the league. And he started off a little rusty, but he got some momentum going, and he's not as good as Dak, but he's I think good enough. And he made 2 incredible throws to Michael Gallup at the end, and Gallup made 2 incredible catches from those throws, and that sealed the game. So, yeah, talk about those catches were great, and great replay, by the way. Thank you to the refs and the replay for having great camera angles and confirming those as receptions because they were. And also, the importance of having a backup quarterback, which we'll get to in a minute once Jeremy starts talking about Jimmy.
Yeah, so I completely agree about the backup quarterback thing, and Dalton, there was definitely some rust there. He threw
Yeah.
some unadvisable lateral passes to guys that weren't going to make any gains. You see that when guys are kind of a little underwater and are kind of getting back in the swing of things, but he did lead them to a win after Dak was injured, which just credit to the Cowboys as a whole after that, because on the drive that Dak broke his ankle, Ezekiel Elliott scored a rushing touchdown. And a lot of teams after a injury like that, especially to a, key player like their quarterback, it's devastating, right? And you can see it affect the mentality of the guys on the field. But instead of slouching and deciding to get run over the rest of the game, they stepped up, and you could just tell, like, that Elliott TD on that drive was that was for Dak. Like, he ran hard and he punched it in. It just way to respond after such a devastating loss. So I love to see that when guys step up. There's, whether it's the leadership of the guys on the team, the coaching, whatever, they just made it happen. And there is something to be said about playing through adversity, right? Like that term is used too much. Another term amongst commentators, the term adversity, but in this case, it really was true. So yeah, I think, Dalton will be serviceable for them. I am a bit worried about Dallas's secondary because it's pretty bad. They got a lot of fouls and there's bad tackling, and they've shown to give up lots of points this year so far. So if Dalton can hold up and be decent, I think they can win the division. But if they're not going to get Dak back before the playoffs or at the playoffs, they're not going anywhere. They're just not good. They're not good enough. Even with their receivers, I just don't think they're good enough. So yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, that's kind of where things are, and the Giants gave him a good fight in that game. I did like what I saw from Jones for the most part. There was one, I'll just go through this one crazy sequence just because you don't see this kind of stuff very often, and then we'll move on to the Dolphins-Niners game. So Daniel Jones, this was like, I think third or maybe early fourth quarter. Daniel Jones throws this beautiful under pressure throw to Slayton, overturned because of a ticky-tack OPI. I thought it was ticky-tack. And then that forced the Giants, it was on third down, so it was fourth down, the Giants had to punt. And then the punt, on the punt play, Dallas had 12 men on the field. And so the 5-yard penalty actually gave put the Giants within comfortable field goal range because they were kind of right on the outskirts for the punt. The 5 yards put them in within field goal range, and then they kicked and put the score at 24-23. So just kind of a funny thing. And 12 men fouls should never ever happen. It's one of those things that you just bang your head against the wall when it does.
Especially when it wasn't where, like, one guy's running off the field, like that one deep guy, like that was just, it wasn't one of those ones where, like, it's bad timing and the other team just, gets a playoff quickly. Peyton Manning used to do that, from what I recall. But that was just like a bonehead move. It's like, nope, we think there's 11, but there's 12.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the moment that most of us have been dreading and some of us have been excited about.
Oh, yes.
The game of the week, Dolphins at the 49ers. I almost don't want to call them the 49ers. I want to call them like
40 losers.
The 49ers prime or something, like the 49ers substitutes or the practice squad or something, because that wasn't the 49ers that I know that went out on that field on Sunday. So I'm going to let, actually, I spoke a lot during the Giants game, so I'm going to let Joseph kind of dive into this one first, and then he and I are going to have a lot to talk about, a lot to diagnose, but I'll let Joseph lead off on this one.
Yeah, so I had a feeling in my guts. Jeremy and I, we use that phrase that we pick games. Apparently he had one for the Titans. They won. But, I figured, okay, Fitzpatrick, or shall I say Fitz Magic, is, you know what, he's going to go out there. Got nothing to lose. He's going to go out there. He's going to sling it. I think the Niners, even Jimmy coming back, they're going to be off, and they don't really have home field advantage because of COVID. And I just got a feeling that the Dolphins, I saw some good things with them playing against the Seahawks last week. Even though they didn't win, they played well, and the Seahawks were and are better team, even with Jimmy back. So, yeah, very excited to see the win. Talk about the defense. Like, we made some big stops. Like, our defense wasn't incredible, but we put some pressure on Jimmy. I mean, how about that hit from, I had his name here. This is such a great name. Andrew Van Ginkel.
Nice.
That guy decked. I mean, decked Garoppolo. Which quarter was that? And I have it here.
It was I think it was either in the it was in the first half.
It was in the first half. Yeah, it was in the first half.
Yeah.
And Garoppolo just got decked by Ginkel, and wow, I'm surprised he got up from that. And great job by Ginkel, not hit helmet to helmet or like spear him. Like you could tell he kind of moved at the last second to where even though he crushed him, he didn't like. He would have only caused an injury by momentum and not like location of the hit, which good on him. One thing that's kind of big, a huge stop on 4th and 1 in the middle of the first quarter for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Jimmy clearly wasn't healthy because the announcers made they gave a very awesome stat. They said on 3rd and short and 4th and short for quarterback sneaks, Jimmy Garoppolo is 13 out of 14 for conversion. And that he probably got that from Tom Brady, learning from Tom Brady. Well, that Garoppolo's got to know that. The coaches have to know that. And so if they don't feel comfortable with Garoppolo doing that on a 4th and 1, knowing how good he is at that in his career, that clearly shows they're not confident with him, and he's injured. So that was a big thing. But yeah, some big stops by the defense. I'll get to some of the offensive stuff later. I'll let Jeremy go ahead.
So, oh man, there's just so many things. But yes, his ankle was not 100%. And you could see that in his timidity in the pocket. You could see it in a lot of his throws were sort of looked like helium was in the ball. He couldn't lean back on, because the bad ankle is the one that he leans back on, right? And when
did you see his foot? Did you see how on some of his throws he would throw and then like pick his back foot up and like move it forward? Which you never do. Like that's terrible mechanics.
Yeah, he just was not. He was not himself, and I felt like they rushed him back too soon. He wasn't quite ready. I kind of felt like the reason that they did that was because there was a sense of urgency that after a should have won game against the Eagles last week, they were sitting at 2-2. This was a must-win game. They couldn't just assume that they were going to win with a backup quarterback after our backup quarterback play has been not so great this year so far. Because remember, Jimmy's been out since the first half of the Jets game, which was game number 2, right? So he missed the Giants game, he missed the Eagles game, so he came in raw and was not healthy, and just looked off. And you could see it. The 2 interceptions were just like throw it up so anybody can catch it. It was like a bouquet, or what do you call the things at weddings where they throw it up and then you catch it, the audience catches it? I
don't know.
Whatever. But like that, right? It's just like throw it up. Anybody can catch this ball. It doesn't matter. And he was under a lot of pressure, which was, I guess, the second big narrative in the game was the O-line was just awful. And they've been awful all year so far. But yesterday or Sunday was on a whole nother level. I mean, they had blown blocks. They had just miscommunications all over the place. I mean, they gave up 3 sacks that were clearly just miscommunication issues at like free rushers. Like it just all kinds of issues. They didn't do, between Jimmy and CJ, who played in the second half, they didn't do it. They didn't improve at all. They just sucked the whole day. So when your quarterback's hurt and throws 2 picks, your O-line is garbage, and your backup quarterback shouldn't even be in the NFL, your offense is just not going to score points. Everybody thought, well, Jimmy coming back, we got all of our playmakers. Our defense, yes, is riddled with injuries, but we could at least keep pace by scoring, right? And that's, I genuinely think that if the O-line played to what it is, like that, again, the O-line we had on Sunday is the O-line that we had last year, right? It was really good. Our run offense was really good. It protected pretty well. We gave up very few sacks last year. If they played at the level they should have and Jimmy was healthy, I'm pretty sure this would have been a close game.
Yeah.
But, But it that neither of those things were true. And so we couldn't score points. And then on the defensive side, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, who's gonna expect Fitzpatrick to have like player of the week of the NFL?
Yeah.
I mean, that was his game was ridiculous. So there was extremes on both ends, and you're right. If you tighten those up, you either win or it's close.
Yeah. And well, you go ahead and talk about Fitzpatrick, because he made some pretty amazing plays in that game.
Oh yeah. First of all, how about that 17-yard run up the middle, and just really, I mean, he's made some. I wanted to mention him in I think it was the Seahawks game or the game before that, to where, yeah, he had like I'm just remember that. Hold on a second. I'll get to that in a minute. But he was a stud. I mean, he made some big throws, but I noticed that he was willing to get hit. He had a touchdown throw when he got hit. He's not afraid to get hit when he runs. Like, I don't really see him slide. He runs head first, and he's willing to stay in the pocket and try to make that throw, even if he's about to get crushed. And he did get hit pretty hard several times in this game. So, yeah, in that win against Jacksonville, he had 7 carries for 38 yards, including a long of 14. But those were a grueling 38 yards. I remember some of those rushes were just incredible. He was putting his body on the line. And, Mark Schlereth, we'll tease him here in a minute when the commentator says those things. But he made a joke that's true. He joked about Fitzpatrick, who's willing to take a hit, and he's having so much fun playing, and he's playing on borrowed time, which is true. He knows Tua's going to be the starter. He's turning 38 this year. He's not an amazing quarterback, and whether he retires this year or not, or goes somewhere else, he's probably going to be done pretty soon. And he's just having fun, but he's willing to lead this team, and he's willing to play hard, even if it means like sacrificing his body, to help get this team in a better position for Tua. And that's just that I really appreciate that. So, Patrick, thank you, Patrick, for putting your body on the line and playing great. And he made some really good throws, and he had that play. I'll end here. Get back to Jeremy. Is that monster play to Gesicki in the second quarter? He threw it. Now this play, it either should have been contested or Gesicki should have been tackled. But number 41, Jamal Taylor of the Niners, did something that I know Jeremy didn't like, and something I've addressed before, and that is you keep running with the ball, and you have to make sure you time it correctly as to when you jump. That throw to Gesicki, I watched that replay so many times, and I'm convinced that if Jamal did not turn his body and kind of like stick and then jump backwards to deflect it, if he kept running with the ball, he could have either made a play on it or he could have tackled Gesicki. And I conservatively checked, and if he let Gesicki caught it, ran with the ball and tackled him, he would have saved 40 yards. But instead, turned his body around. That delay of time and slowing down allowed the ball to float over his hands. Like he caught it and ran down to like the 15-yard line. Huge play of the game. Total took the wind out of the sails for the Niners defense, even if they probably didn't have a sail to begin with. But they removed the staff and the boats, and just a bad play by Taylor. So all in there.
Yeah, that play, I can't agree more that play really set the tone for the day. And I mean, I could just write essays about this game, but that play in particular, yeah, it looked like the defender wanted. I can't remember. I thought it was Allen on that play, but you're saying it was
Jamal
Taylor.
Yeah, number 41.
Okay. So Taylor, it looked like he thought he was going to get an interception on that play. Like he jumped up a little too early. He was a yard or so too far behind. And if he had timed his jump better, he might have gotten a one hand, or at least batted the pass away, right?
Or tackled Gesicki. Minimum tackle Gesicki and save 40 yards.
Right. And so it was just a horrendous play. Taylor was a guy that we pulled up off of our practice squad for this game, right? We are Richard Sherman, Emmanuel Mosley, Richard Sherman, leg issue, calf issue, something. Mosley, concussion. K1 Williams, MCL or ACL sprain, I think. And then Witherspoon had an issue as well, but so we had our top 4 corners were all out. And so we pulled two guys off of the street. One of them was Taylor. The other one was Brian Allen, who had the worst cornerback performance in the history of cornerback performances. I'm not being statistical. It was awful.
It was bad, man.
Bad. It may have been historically bad. Who knows? But it felt like the Dolphins planned their personnel and their game plan and understood the Niners personnel better than the Niners did.
Oh, dude, game. I think that Fitzpatrick targeted Allen.
Oh, absolutely. He picked on Allen until we took him out in like the third quarter, which what in the world was that? We have another guy that, by the way, picked off Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year, who could have easily come in and played. I don't know why he didn't start. He's not a nickel corner, but Jimmy Ward can play nickel. We could have moved Jimmy Ward over to play nickel instead of Taylor, and we could have brought in Tarvarius Moore, who's the guy that picked off Mahomes last year. We could have put him in at safety, right? And then Witherspoon, who said, I can come in an emergency, decided after a half of football, after the Niners were sunk, that he was healthy enough to play. So he came to Kyle and said, I can play. And he got ridiculed beyond anything after the game for saying that. Like, I don't understand the personnel decisions at all. They made no sense to me. We did not put our best players on the field that day as far as the secondary is concerned. And that just was stupid. I don't understand it at all. Brian Allen may never play a snap of football ever again after that. I mean, it just was terrible. So we're going to introduce a new part to our game of the week, and that is our impact player of the game. And since I'm already talking about him, I'll just go first. There can be impact players that impact the game in a positive way, and there's impact players that can impact the game in a negative way. In this case, the negative impact player of the game was none other than Brian Allen. Horrendous corner play. I've ripped on how many bad corners there are in the league, but he took it to another level. So I'll let Joseph do the positive impact player of the game.
Well, as people can imagine, this guy's name is going to show up again in other segments, and I'll save some of that for later. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, not just, he had 3 carries for 16 yards, and one was that 17-yard rush. 2 of them obviously weren't very good, probably sacks. But just the gritty run, willing to get hits, willing to play, completed 78.6% of his completions. 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Yes, you're going to hear these numbers again pretty soon. But this was crazy. Listen to this. 15.9 yards per completion. That's ridiculous. Anything above 13 is really good to great. Almost 16 yards per completion. Just was patient in the pocket, and when he needed to scramble, he did. Had a few mistakes, but nothing too major. So yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick just out of his mind, and we'll even have some fun commentator the darndest things here about him in a minute. But yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, definitely the guy, and he won the game for us. And with the help of Brian Allen losing the game for us for the guys that he tried to protect that Fitzpatrick threw to.
Yeah, that 17-yard run, they showed it in slow motion, which is just beautiful because this 38-year-old old man was running down in a wide open field, got 17 yards, and I'll give him credit. I mean, the lack of aerodynamics because of his beard really would have slowed him down, but he made it far. So he gets all the credit in the world for that run.
He did not slide. He was completely willing to take a hit, which he has before. So, all right.
All right. So that doesn't even
like a whole show. That's like a whole show.
Yeah, I know. That doesn't even begin to talk about kind of the future for the Niners and what the rest of the season holds, but we'll maybe talk about that another time. Our next segment is our Who Wrecked Face this week. And I'm going to let Joseph start with this, and then I'll end with a handful of players.
Oh, no. You got to start. I
Oh,
have to
okay.
end with my yes. You gotta.
Fair
You gotta.
enough. Fair enough. You had the win this week, so I'll go ahead and start. So, I already forgot. Am I doing the receivers?
Yes, you're you're doing the receivers and defense.
Okay, perfect. So, the we coordinate this beforehand, by the way, because we have a lot of picks and want to make sure we each get to cover some players. So, um, there's two receivers. Chase Claypool, 7 receptions, 11 targets, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then 3 carries for 6 yards and a touchdown. So he was responsible for 28 of the Steelers' 38 points on Sunday. And then Brandon Cooks was 8 receptions on 12 targets for 161 yards and a touchdown, and in the Texans' first win of the year. Jalen Smith, linebacker for Dallas, had 14 tackles, 3.5 for loss, 1 sack, and 2 quarterback hits. That, my friends, is what you call a tackling machine. And then lastly, Aaron Donald for the LA Rams, the MVP of the league, 4 tackles, and all of them were sacks.
And for the context on the Chase Claypool, outside of the touchdowns, that doesn't sound super impressive, but some of those were some ridiculous catches. He's really developing. I saw the highlights. He's really developing. I saw his highlights anyways. He's developing to a great receiver, and they got something special in Pittsburgh. Okay, my turn. So we have here, I'll tack one on here actually that we missed. Todd Gurley for the Falcons, 4 receptions, 29 yards. But what really special is 14 carries, 121 yards, and a rushing touchdown. That's an 8.6 rushing average, by the way. And then now we're going to skip that one. Here we go. Let's talk about who got wrecked. Let's start with the Washington passing. Now, yes, we're happy Alex Smith came back. But man, did his offensive line let him get beat up. Do you want him to injure his other leg? Washington football team offensive line. 9 for 17 for 37 yards and was sacked 6 times. I mean, my goodness. And even their other quarterback who came in, he wasn't terrible, but not prolific either. And then what we know is coming. Who else got wrecked? Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo was 7 of 17 for 77 yards, 0 touchdowns and 2 picks. Probably one of the worst. I didn't know a QBR could be this low. Honestly, I thought that as long as you put your jersey on and you stepped on the field and you tried to throw a pass, that it was impossible to have a passer rating less than like 30. His passer rating was 15.7 and his QBR was 1.4. So wow.
Yeah,
anyway,
worst of his career by far.
Worse than probably anyone's career.
Oh no, were you watching the Niners in the mid early 2010s? No, there were some Kaepernick and what's his face had put up some horrendous numbers.
I'm gonna love to look up and see what the lowest career QBR and passer rating numbers
Blaine
are.
Gabbert.
Yeah, I'll have to look. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, if you include his interceptions as receptions, he was 2 for 9. 22% of balls that were caught were interceptions. Yeah, he was bad. We know why, because of the injury. But someone who did not get their face wrecked, but who did a lot of wrecking of face. If you forgot his name, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. 22 of 28, 78.6% completion percentage, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a 99.1 QBR out of 100, by the way, and a 154.5 passer rating. It's at a 158.3. And the only reason, it's so dumb, the only reason he did not get a perfect passer rating, I looked up the calculation, is because apparently he did not get enough touchdowns per attempt. You have to have 1 touchdown for every 8.42 attempts, or 11.8%, and he was below that. So because of that, or they got that number.
Yeah, because of that arbitrary statistic.
Yeah, because of that, this clearly amazing game was not perfect. So yeah, because 15.9 completion yards per completion, 78%, 350 yards, no picks. I don't know how that's not perfect, but apparently you have to throw a touchdown every 8.42 or whatever attempt. So, all right, I'm done. Enough of that goodness.
All right. So our next segment is our article / news stories for the week. So we're going to be doing overreactions again. This week, so this is based on week 5 results. And this again, our friendly neighborhood ESPN staff writer Dan Graziano. There's only a handful, I think like 4 or 5 teams on this one. So we'll start off with his first one. And we'll go through these, and Joseph and I will give our comments. So the first one is the Raiders are legitimate. The Raiders are legitimate. Is he back, by the way, Chris Berman?
Oh, is he back?
Back. Yeah, I think he's back. Because he retired or whatever, and then I think he came back. But anyway, the Raiders are legitimate AFC contenders.
So they're not even legit AFC West contenders. I don't, maybe that's, but come on, get out of here. Get out of here. Chiefs, heck, I'll go to the Broncos next, even if they're not contenders either. But Steelers, the Browns are showing up. The Ravens, the Bills, get out of here, Dan. Granted, I have to take back what I just said. He said it was an overreaction too, so never mind.
Yeah.
But this comment is ridiculous, and so Dan, thank you for calling it an overreaction because it's an overreaction.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the teams that are good in the AFC, he lists Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Tennessee. That's already 7 teams, right? That would already fill all of the playoff slots. So they would need one of those teams, at least one of those teams, to falter, and then they would need to finish out their season at 6-5 or better. And he makes a great point that they're actually only their average points given up is more than their points scored so far. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. They did beat the Chiefs. Yes, that was a division game. It was nice to see the Chiefs lose, but Las Vegas is not gonna make the playoffs. All right, next one. The Steelers.
How about we rotate so that you get a chance to comment off my saying?
Sure,
so
that works. That sounds great.
I figured I did that last time I did all the talking. So the Steelers don't have to pay Juju.
So again, this is where we have to play with the negatives a little bit. So the Steelers don't have to pay Juju Smith-Schuster is I think the Steelers are going to have to pay Juju Smith-Schuster. So I don't know how that lines it. He says it's not an overreaction.
So he would disagree with you then. He would disagree with you. He would say that because he banked on Chase. He's banking on Chase Claypool, who's going to be great, yes. But I feel like what makes the Steelers special over the past several years with Big Ben is he's always had at least one prime target and then like a really good second target who could be a number one on like half the teams in the NFL. And so that's clearly Schuster with Chase coming up the ranks. So you can't just have Chase. That's not how many teams can really just have one really good wide receiver. Then he gets double teams and blah blah. And so I don't think it's bad to say it's a non-overreaction, but I agree with you that he needs to get paid and they need to keep him. If they don't keep him, that's a bad decision.
Yeah, totally. All right, next one is no one ever has to pay a running back again.
And Dan, we'll just say he says here not in a reaction. He's wrong. I don't know how Jeremy, like, how do we not just quit our jobs and get paid twice of what we're making now, but half of what they're making to say much better things? There's like a factor of 4 or 8 in there because this is ridiculous. And he brings up Christian McCaffrey. They're 3-0 with with another running back and 2-0-2 with McCaffrey. Yeah, because anyone in the league or any fan in the NFL with half a brain is going to say, I don't want Christian McCaffrey as my running back. Ridiculous. This is dumb. Jeremy and I have made clearly the statements that quarterbacks are more valuable than running backs. We get that. That's not what's being made here. There are some very valuable running backs. Yes, they lose their value once they hit a certain age, most of them. But McCaffrey's still very young, and he's one of the most valuable players in the NFL outside of half the quarterbacks in the league. So this is an overreaction. How about just say something more mild and reasonable? This is ridiculous.
So yeah, so I just to make sure we're on the same page. So my interpretation of this was that running backs are, because you usually rely on sort of the one prime guy that gets paid a lot, that because they're injury prone, that if you lose them, that you shouldn't be sunk all that money. Is that the idea?
Honestly, I didn't read it, so that's his idea.
Oh, well, there you go. So yeah, I mean, to me, this is sort of like you pay money. The reason that you pay money is because you need to retain talent on your team, and the Panthers have that. Like, McCaffrey's been really good for the Panthers. Sure, it sucks that he got hurt, but I don't know. I think you're still gonna have to pay these guys, because the thing is, like, why is that different from any other position? We were just talking about Juju Smith-Schuster. The Steelers are going to have to pay him too. So I don't think he necessarily should get paid the money that he probably will get paid, but running backs need to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, he signed an extension, 4 years, $64 million. But if you compare that to receivers, like, because McCaffrey can do it all. I mean, he's one of the best athletes.
And I think that's the reason why I think this is maybe almost like a false, a false dichotomy, sort of, is because he's a really good pass catching running back, right? Yeah. So if we're just talking about like a pure back, sort of like a Derrick Henry type player, more, or like a Marshawn Lynch or whatever. Like, yeah, that kind of back, I think maybe the league is starting to evolve a little bit out of that. But if we are in fact evolving towards having running backs that are also pass catching more, then those guys are just going to become more valuable, not less. So
yeah, and this guy's the next Marshall Faulk. I mean, he had just monster numbers. Oh,
it's a pet peeve of mine when people do that.
He's already had 1 year. 1 year that was close. Second year. His last year was a Marshall Faulk season, and actually better. So, yeah. When healthy, there's no reason to think he wasn't going to put it up again. So, you can take your pet peeves. And
we need to have him in the league for another 2 or 3 years before we start talking like
that. Fine.
How long has he been in the league?
This is his 4th year.
Okay, let's give it another 7, and then we'll talk. Okay, all right.
Regardless, we get the point. Move on.
Yeah, all right. You do the next one.
The Cowboys season is toast without Dak Prescott.
If by season, this is usually what people mean by season, that they're not going to make the playoffs, then that's an overreaction, because the NFC East is so bad that I think the Cowboys are still better than the other teams in it, even with Prescott hurt. But if you mean their chances of making a deep playoff run are toast, then I would say that this is not an overreaction.
Well, if the latter's true, I would say it's a non-point, because who was really thinking the Cowboys with this terrible defense was going to win more than 8 games anyways and go far in the playoffs with Dak?
You were.
What?
You said weren't they like your comeback team of the year or whatever?
Well, yeah, until we saw. Well, yeah, dude, we all. They were until they decided to give up like 30 million points a game.
Well, I mean, you were talking about going into the season, right? Like going
into the season. I'm talking about
let's have accountability here, man.
Accountability's gone once we start the season and all our predictions are wrong. Like both of us. Aaron Rodgers is gonna be terrible. He's gonna have a regression, or he's just gonna put up like a.
No, but we should be accountable about that. We were wrong.
I know. What I'm saying is, well, the irony is what you're saying is actually also a non-point as well, because talking about now, like people now don't think that the Cowboys weren't going to go very far with.
Oh, sure, yeah. In the context of writing this article, yes, the expectations have changed.
Well, no. I mean, with their defense that they've shown, like he's put up historical numbers, but their defense is so bad that even before he got injured, we're like, well, the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East with like 7 or 8 wins. But that how much further can they go?
But he hasn't put up numbers as good as Teddy Bridgewater, though. All right. Enough of this tomfoolery.
It's an overreaction because the East is so bad.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. The last one is Kevin Stefanski will win Coach of the Year.
I don't really care, and he might win it. So.
That's not the question, Joseph. You have to care. You have to have a reaction.
My reaction is I don't care, but it's not an overreaction because, the Browns are 4-1, but honestly, why is it the Bills coach going to be Coach of the Year? But whatever, Bills, Browns, it doesn't matter.
Well, the Bills were 10-6 last year and made the playoffs.
All right, fair enough. But the Browns, every year, the past few years, it's like, here come the Browns, and then no.
Okay, let's say they go 10-6 this year. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay, I think so. I think that's fair. Okay, so yeah, I think that is not an overreaction. Okay.
I think that segment was.
Yes, it was, and there will be plenty more as we progress through the season. Okay, our 5th segment of the night is our commentators say the darndest things. Joseph, you had some gold from the Dolphins-Niners game, I believe.
Yeah, Mark Schlereth. Now, once I found out that it's Mark, I remember him back on ESPN back in the day. Very exuberant, and you remember him being an offensive tackle. He was an offensive lineman for the Broncos. I think for the John Elway teams. But yeah, he has gold. And the thing about him is you have to listen to like paragraphs, right? It's not most of the commentators are just like one little quick line. But for him, I listened to the entire first half, and I have 3 here. That doesn't even include 2 other pieces of gold that I'll just have to go back and listen to later and save for later. And it doesn't include, he was the guy that did the Rams-Giants game I said last week that had, a bunch of them. So if we never find these, I can just go back to previous games and find it. Here we go. So he's talking about Fitzpatrick in the beginning of the game. He says, when he gets streaky, he is really tough to deal with. And then referring to Kittle, why am I forgetting who's his first name? What's Kittle's first name?
George, or as most people say, Greg.
Wait, what?
A lot of people call him Greg Kittle.
So George Kittle, at the end of the first quarter, says here, give him that ball in space because he's a tackle-breaking machine. Like I said, he's the people's tight end, man.
What? Funny, but true.
And then this one's ridiculous. I had to listen to this like 6 times just to type it out correctly because he said it so fast and it's a long sentence. How about Ryan Fitzpatrick? It's in the beginning of the second quarter. He says, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's one of those guys. And I said this in the open. Man, he can be streaky. And you get him a rhythm, he's going to cut you up, man. That's what he has done throughout the entirety of his career.
You mean
right now, I promise you he's feeling confident.
You mean cut up everyone with all of his interceptions?
Wait, what?
You're talking
About
about
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah, for career. That was ridiculous. I mean, yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a great game, but you get him a risky streak, he's gonna cut you up, man. His entire career. Are you kidding me? That reminds me. Remember we used to watch those games in school with John Gruden on Monday Night Football, and he always picked a player each week on a team
That he just
that
obsessed over.
yeah, they were just like the best player in the game, or even the best player in the league, like the best player in NFL history at the position.
Yes.
Yeah, so it just reminded me of that. Now, and this is less of a comment. There's some funny comments about this, but I just have the spirit of the comment, not the comments. But after Kyle Juszczyk gets a touchdown, apparently Juszczyk went to Harvard, and Fitzpatrick was his inspiration because Fitzpatrick went to Harvard, and apparently Mark thinks that everyone that goes to Harvard is really intelligent, which isn't actually the case. Nor even if they are, doesn't mean that they all studied math and physics because yeah, he was just like, yeah, made some funny comments about Juszczyk being on the phone and, you know, people from Harvard, just math and physics or whatever. So sorry. Yeah, there's still some other ones I find that are good, but Mark, keep providing us the golds. I'm gonna be looking for every game that you do because you're gonna give me these darnest things for the rest of the year.
Just so everybody knows the context, Ryan Fitzpatrick has a 1.3 touchdown to interception ratio in his career. So, just so that you understand exactly what we're making fun of here. Okay, so moving on to our final segment of the evening.
Hold on, really quick.
Yes.
We have to. Where's it at? Nope, that's it. Sorry, I'll just stick with that. Yeah, 1.3. You're correct. That's terrible.
Okay, our final segment of the night is our predictions segment. So we're going to start off with tricky picks. I was apparently a putrid 0-4 this week, putting my season numbers at 8, 10, and 2, which is sub 500. If you can do math, but of course you only can if you went to Harvard. Joseph was 2-2 this last week and is sitting above 500 at 11, 7, and 2. So Joseph has 5 new picks for us this week.
Yeah, and just for the ones to give some accountability for last week, where I pick up the extra wins. For the tricky pick special, Dolphins and Niners, there were 5 tricky picks, and we had the same or got them wrong for the 4 of them. The only difference, I think this was fair, is Jeremy said that Kittle's receiving yards would be more than the Niners rushing if Jimmy played, and Jimmy did start, so that counts. And then the other one, I was bold on this, and this was exciting to see. What was going to be more, Dalvin Cook's total yards from scrimmage or Wilson's total yards in his worst half? And it turns out Cook had more. Cook only had 89 total yards, but Russell Wilson had a terrible first half. Scored, almost all their points in the second half. Russell Wilson, not including the 27 yards lost on a sack, which I was afraid that I may have to use to either win or lose. So I was going to talk to you about that. But I didn't even need those negative 27 yards because Wilson only had 75 yards. So 200 of his 275 yards were in the second half. So then
that begs the question then. So in the future, are we going to count for passing stats? Are we going to count passing or net passing?
So here's the thing. We'll count passing. What I meant here is when I said, because for Dalvin Cook, I said total yards from scrimmage. For Wilson, I said total yards. And so moving forward, I'll make the discernment. Like I'll say total yards minus sack yards or total yards including sack yards. I'll make
fair enough. Fair enough.
So for this week, got some good ones here. Washington at Giants, which will be higher? The total sacks plus total turnovers of the game, or the offensive touchdowns and made field goals and punts the first half of the game? Both teams combined.
The second one.
Okay. I'm going with the first one. Taking note of these on my computer. All right. Number 2, Cleveland at Steelers, which will be higher? Kareem Hunt rushing yards plus Odell Beckham Jr.'s receiving yards plus their total touchdowns combined, or James Conner rushing yards plus Chase Claypool receiving yards plus their total touchdowns combined.
So when you say plus total touchdowns, is that just a raw number that gets tacked onto the receiving rushing yards, or like a separate number that's compared against the other team's touchdowns?
Oh,
Is it
I
like
realized.
300 plus 5
Oh
versus
yeah, I'm
280
sorry.
plus 6?
I realized. Yeah, I realized. I think I did that with the previous one. I did wrong. Drop the touchdowns. I'm sorry. I think I made a mistake there.
Okay, so it's basically Kareem Hunt's rushing plus Odell Beckham's receiving versus James Conner rushing, and was it Schuster? Or no,
Claypool
Claypool receiving,
receiving.
right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, sorry. My bad.
I'm gonna go with the Steelers.
Okay, same here. I'm gonna skip this next one because it's the best one, and I have to make clarification on it with Jeremy beforehand. Chiefs at Bills. Will there be a defensive touchdown or punt return for a touchdown in this game? Tough one, I know.
No.
All right, I went yes. Cardinals at Cowboys. Which will be more? Tyler Murray's rushing yards plus DeAndre Hopkins receiving yards, or Ezekiel Elliott total yards plus Michael Gallup receiving yards?
Oh, the second one.
Okay, I'm going the first one. Only because I think Dalton's not going to get much to Gallup, and I think Hopkins and Murray are going to go off. All right, so this one, so Jeremy, for clarification, see those numbers? See where it says 4 to 5 and 6? Make it 4 and then 5 to 6. I realize that the extremes make more sense to have 2. So go ahead and make that change, and I'll say the pick. Okay. How many of the following statistics will Aaron Rodgers complete in the Green Bay versus Tampa Bay? And there's 6 stats here, and we're saying, and I'll list how many he might get. So 300 or plus passing yards, 0 interceptions, 4 or more passing touchdowns, touchdown throws to 3 or more receivers, 1 or more rushing touchdowns, and 70% or higher completion percentage. The answers, the possibilities are 0 or 1, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and 6.
I'm gonna say okay, let me just walk through this out loud so to keep things more interesting. So I think 300 passing yards is likely. 0 interceptions is reasonably likely. 4 plus passing touchdowns is reasonably likely. Touchdowns thrown to 3 plus receivers is 50-50. 1 plus rushing touchdown is a little unlikely, and I think 70% plus completion percentage is reasonably likely. So I think I would say 4.
Okay. I'll make this interesting. I went 3 and then I went 4, but because you went 4, I'm going back to 3. I want to keep that. I want to have enough variety in our picks. So go with 3. You'll go with 4. Yeah, I realized it was terrible to have 4 to 5 because the extremes need to have the 2. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It'd be too easy.
Yeah,
okay,
that makes sense.
That's it.
All right. So moving on to the final mini segment, which is our game predictions for the week. Our record this last week, Joseph and I were actually tied at 10-4. We had 2 games that we differed on, but we split them. Joseph picked Dolphins over 49ers and got that game, and I picked Titans over Bills and got that game. So we're both 10-4. There was a bye this week, and there was also the Broncos-Patriots game got postponed. So that's not included in the record. Will be included in when that game's actually played. Which I guess So we still made the pick for that game. So I think what we'll do is, since situations change, like players get injured, all that, we will reassess the pick for that game when it comes back on the schedule. I think that's a
Which is
fair, which is
which
this
is this
week, I
week.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for any other games that will get affected by COVID postponements, we will do the same. If we make a pick and then that game gets postponed, we'll get a chance to reevaluate the pick when the game actually happens. Um, okay. So my total record is up to 54 and 22 and 1, which is 71.1%, and Joseph is at 47 and 29 47 29 and 1, which is 61.8%. All right. So going into our week 6 predictions, we'll go in order. I'll start with the first team, then I'll do odds, Joseph will do evens. So first game is Texans at Titans. I'm going Titans.
This was a tough one. It's just in my guts. I'm going Texans.
Okay. Yeah, this was also thought this was a tough one. It's tough to know
Uh,
whether the Texans have momentum or not, but the Titans looked pretty good tonight.
yeah, Bengals, Colts, also tough, but I'm going Bengals. Joe Burrow was down, but yeah, the Philip Rivers has not impressed me, and the Colts are. Jonathan Taylor has been unimpressive too. So
Jover-rated Burrow. Okay, I picked the Colts on this one.
All right, we're two difference already.
Falcons at Vikings. I'm going Vikings.
Same. The Falcons, who fired their head coach and may actually get rid of Matt Ryan. So
Yeah, they're circling the drain.
Denver at New England. Picking New England again on the contingency of Cam Newton, which is why I think they moved the game up anyways to get him in and to be fair to Denver. So going Patriots.
Same. Washington, or should I say, the football team at Giants. I'm going Giants.
Same. Let me talk about least game of the year.
Wait, but I thought we agreed this was going to be our game of the week.
we almost thought about that. It was pretty bad, but yeah, going Giants as well. Baltimore at Philly.
We're gonna have to squeeze Washington in at some point. So, but it won't be this game.
Baltimore at Philly. Sorry, Philly fans, you're not going anywhere this year, even with in the NFC least. Going Baltimore.
Same. Browns at Steelers. This was actually a pretty tough one based on how the Browns have been playing, but I'm going Steelers.
Yeah, very tough, but also going Steelers. The defense is looking good, and Big Ben's playing well. Chicago at Carolina. I apparently did not have this game picked. Can we circle around? Because I forgot to pick this game. So
yes, we can circle around. Lions at Jaguars. This was a tough one. Probably, maybe the toughest one. I'm going Jaguars.
Same. Jets at Miami. Miami, if you can't beat the Jets, oh my gosh. Yeah, going Miami.
Same. Packers at Bucks. Another tough one, but I'm going Packers.
Same. Rams at Niners. Sorry, bro. Going Rams.
I am too. You don't have to be sorry.
Okay.
Chiefs at Bills. Another tough one, but I'm actually gonna go Bills on this one.
Same. I thought about it.
Wow.
I mean, granted, I made these picks before tonight's game, so kind of surprising to see the Bills get trucked by the Titans. But I think Josh Allen will step back. I think he's still playing really well, and I don't know if the Chiefs' defense will be able to handle him. So yeah, going Bills, but tough one. Arizona at Dallas. Going Arizona. I think they'll go after Dalton and Tyler Murray and Hopkins are gonna have a good game.
Same. I also pick Cardinals. And the secret is, as you made your picks on these difficult teams, I just copied you so that you couldn't make them. No, just kidding. I legitimately, those legitimately were my picks. But we did have two differences at the beginning. So Texans, Titans, Bengals, Colts are differences. So Joseph does have a chance to catch up 2 games. I also have a chance to widen the lead by 2 games. So
back to Chicago, Carolina. I'm gonna go.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Chicago has been a little defeated. If this was 2 games ago, I'd pick Chicago. I'm going Carolina. It's tough. I don't like this game. I'm going Carolina.
Well, Teddy Bridgewater has to throw those 5,000 yards, right? So, actually, a third game. So I picked Bears on this one. So we have 3 games different. All right, so buys this week are Raiders, Saints, Chargers, and Seahawks. The Seahawks need a rest after all that winning. Um, Gosh, I did you see the Vikings game at all?
I did. I can't believe they
How
came back.
frustrating! How
And
frustrating is that?
how did they do? They intercept. They had the ball with like a few minutes left in the fourth quarter. How do you lose that? How do you lose that game?
I don't know. I don't
It was
know. It just
awful. Yeah.
happens, dude. It just happens. Like they were running over the Seahawks O line. Russell Wilson was running for his life. I'm surprised he didn't get hurt. He got sacked 4 times. The Vikings were up 13-0 at halftime, and they let the Seahawks score 27 points in the second half. I mean, how does that happen?
Well, yeah. They were up. They were up. 26-20. Right at the end of the game, and why'd they go for it? That's what it was. They went for it on fourth down at the
Oh, to
end.
try to seal it?
Yeah, it's like no, you get your field goal because that's what it was. Because you get the field goal because then you still force them to drive down uh with time, and then you. Oh no, I'm sorry. Was it the other way around? Did they get the field goal or not? I forgot. Did they go for it on fourth down?
Well, no,
I,
no.
I
So
was thinking
the
about both
the
scenarios.
the Seahawks were up 21-19, and then the Vikings scored a touchdown to go up 26-21.
Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go back here.
Or
I'm
was
looking
it
at the play by play.
20? Yeah.
There was a play. Uh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, 4th and 1 at the Seattle 6. Yeah, get your 3 points because
This was when they had 26 points already?
yeah, they're up 26-1 and they got to play. They got turned down on downs, and so if they had gotten it, yeah, um, because
So
then
then
they
they
got a
would
touchdown.
so you're saying they would have gone up 29-21?
Yeah, and then
Oh,
they
that
kick
seems
the
like a
ball.
duh.
Yeah, it's like you kick the ball back because then you force them to score a touchdown anyways, but then you force them to go for a 2-point conversion.
Right.
And yeah, it did not make sense. And then you may even have more time left on the clock because they have to drive the field less, right? They're on the 25-yard line unless they return it, than the 6-yard line. So yeah, just a terrible decision to go for it on 4th and 1, and it cost them the game.
Dude, there's just something in the air up there where opposing coaches just make bad decisions, and the Seahawks flip on light switches where the O line decides to play, Russell Wilson decides to play, corners decides to play. I mean, how many interceptions does Seattle have in the second half of football games? I mean, it's just absurd. I don't know how it's literally impossible. Yet it happens anyway. So they're on bye this week. They're 5-0. They're looking like division champions at this point. So our
Hopefully,
game of the week is Browns at Steelers. And there's a couple good candidates for our highlights, but we'll see how those games go, and we'll let you know next week when we talk about them. So that is a wrap for our show tonight. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
peace.